The collective had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Their massive ships, powered by quantum-fold engines and shielded by dark matter barriers, represented the pinnacle of evolution. They had guided countless species to enlightenment, uplifted primitives, and maintained order across 50,000 light-years of space, which made the situation unfolding before High Commander Xerxes all the more incomprehensible. "What do you mean, you can't get a lock on them?" he demanded, his crystalline form pulsing with crimson frustration. The targeting officer's appendages trembled as they interfaced with the neural network. "The human vessels. They're there, but our targeting computers can't predict their trajectories. It's as if they're moving randomly." On the massive view screen of the collective flagship Eternal Wisdom, a squadron of human ships danced through space. They were ugly things by collective standards. Asymmetrical, covered in protruding sensors and weapons pods, their hulls a patchwork of repairs and modifications. They looked like they'd been cobbled together from spare parts, which wasn't far from the truth. Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth ship Phoenix allowed herself a small smile as she watched her fleet execute the Brownian pattern. The collective's targeting systems were legendary, capable of tracking ships through hyperspace jumps and predicting their movements down to the microsecond. But they had one critical weakness: they relied on logic. "Status of the quantum shifters," she asked her XO, Commander James Rodriguez. "Running at 93% efficiency, Captain. The random quantum state generators are feeding directly into the navigation computers. Not even we know where we're going next until we're already there." It had been humanity's greatest breakthrough in space combat. While other species developed faster engines and stronger weapons, humans had embraced chaos theory. The Phoenix and her sister ships incorporated quantum uncertainty directly into their navigation systems. Each microscopic course correction was determined by measuring quantum states, making their movements truly random and therefore unpredictable. The collective had discovered Earth 6 months ago, arriving in their mile-long ships expecting to find another primitive species to guide. Instead, they found humanity, young, brash, and completely unimpressed by their would-be mentor's technology. "Your ships are impressive," Chen had told the collective's ambassadors during first contact. "But you've forgotten how to innovate. You've been stable for so long that you've lost the ability to adapt." The collective had dismissed her words as the arrogance of youth. Now, as their automated targeting systems failed again and again to lock onto the human ships, those words came back to haunt them. "Launch the autonomous hunter-killers," High Commander Xerxes ordered. A swarm of AI-driven combat drones emerged from the collective flagship's hangars, their crystalline forms glinting in the starlight. Chen watched the drones approach on her tactical display. "Right on schedule," she muttered. "Deploy the ECM buoys." Small, nondescript devices ejected from the human ships, floating seemingly at random through space. The collective drones approached, their sensors probing the human fleet. Then the buoys activated. The space around the human ships erupted in a chaos of electromagnetic signals, quantum noise, and gravitational distortions. To the collective sensors, it was like trying to track ships through a snowstorm while wearing kaleidoscopes for eyes. "Impossible!" Xerxes roared as the drones began to crash into each other, their targeting systems hopelessly confused. "Their technology is primitive. Their ships are held together with patches and prayers." "That's where you're wrong," Chen transmitted on an open channel. "Our ships aren't primitive. They're evolved. Every patch represents a lesson learned, every modification an adaptation to a new challenge. We don't build perfect ships because we know perfection is the enemy of progress." The Phoenix suddenly appeared directly in front of the collective flagship, seeming to materialize from the quantum chaos. Its hull was scared, its paint faded, but its weapons were primed and its crew confident. "Here's your choice," Chen continued. "You can either accept that humanity has something to teach you, or you can learn it the hard way. We've spent our entire history adapting, evolving, and overcoming challenges. Your perfect ships and perfect tactics are no match for human ingenuity." High Commander Xerxes stared at the battered human ship that dared to challenge his mighty flagship. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he'd never expected to experience again: uncertainty. The dance had begun, and humanity was leading. The Collective's War Council had never witnessed such disorder. Holographic displays showed the movements of human ships across 17 star systems, but the patterns made no sense. The vessels appeared and disappeared like quantum ghosts, striking collective installations without warning and vanishing before retaliation was possible. "They're using our own relay networks," announced strategic analyst Val New, their crystalline form dimmed with exhaustion. "Somehow, they found a way to hijack our quantum communications arrays. They're not just moving randomly. They're using our own infrastructure against us." High Commander Xerxes had spent 3 sleepless cycles reviewing combat footage. The human ships seemed to phase in and out of reality itself, appearing precisely where collective defenses were weakest. Their attacks weren't merely random, they were orchestrated chaos. Aboard the Phoenix, Captain Chen studied a holographic representation of collective space. Quantum communication relays pulsed like stars across the display, forming a vast network that the Collective used to coordinate their fleets. But where they saw order, humans had seen opportunity. "Status of Operation Ghost Echo?" she asked, watching as green dots representing human ships moved through the network. Commander Rodriguez gestured, expanding a section of the display. "The quantum entanglement spoofers are working better than expected. Every time the Collective tries to coordinate their fleet movements, we're writing their own signals to new positions. Their entire command and control structure has become our private transportation network." It had been Dr. Ava Patel's breakthrough that made it possible. The quantum physicist had realized that the Collective's obsession with perfect communication had created a vulnerability. Their relay network was so precisely tuned, so perfectly synchronized, that it could be hijacked by introducing carefully calculated quantum interference patterns. "They built a highway," Dr. Patel had explained. "We're just adding our own off-ramps." The implications went beyond tactical advantage. Every time a human ship used the network, it introduced tiny imperfections into the system. The perfect crystalline structure of collective communication was developing cracks, forcing them to adapt for the first time in millennia. On the Collective flagship at Eternal Wisdom, High Commander Xerxes received another disturbing report. The humans weren't just attacking military targets, they were transforming collective space itself. Quantum distortions were appearing in previously stable regions, creating zones where their sensors were useless. "We're detecting anomalous energy signatures from abandoned human positions," a sensor officer reported. "They're leaving something behind after each encounter." Quantum seeds, Val New realized, their crystalline form flickering with alarm. They're deliberately destabilizing space-time to create zones of uncertainty. Our perfect order is being corrupted by chaos. The truth was both simpler and more profound. Humanity wasn't just fighting a war. They were introducing evolution into a system that had been static for too long. Each quantum seed was a catalyst for change, forcing the surrounding space to adapt and develop new properties. Captain Chen watched as another squadron of human ships emerged from a quantum relay, their arrival scrambling collective sensors across an entire sector. The Phoenix's own quantum drive hummed with potential, ready to dive back into the network at a moment's notice. "They still don't understand," she mused, watching collective ships trying to maintain their rigid formations in increasingly chaotic space. "We're not trying to destroy their network, we're forcing it to evolve. Every adaptation we introduce makes it more complex, more dynamic." Commander Rodriguez nodded. "They built their civilization on the premise that perfection is strength. We're showing them that perfection is stagnation." A priority alert flashed across the bridge displays. The Collective was mobilizing their reserve fleets, gathering forces for a massive counterattack. But their movements were predictable, their strategies unchanged despite repeated failures. "They're still fighting the last war," Chen observed, "still trying to impose order on chaos." Time to show them the next phase of our plan. She opened a channel to the human fleet. All ships, initiate Protocol Butterfly. Let's show them what really happens when a quantum system reaches critical complexity. Across collective space, human ships began a new dance. Each movement was precisely calculated to create maximum uncertainty, each quantum seed planted to catalyze specific changes in spacetime. They weren't just fighting in the system. They were transforming it, one quantum fluctuation at a time. High Commander Xerxes watched as his perfect universe began to change. The rigid structures that had defined collective civilization for millennia were becoming fluid, unpredictable, and in that chaos, humanity moved like they had been born to it. The silent dance continued, and with each step, the galaxy grew a little less perfect and a little more alive. The collective's response came with the fury of a dying star. 10,000 ships emerged from quantum space simultaneously, their crystalline forms arranged in perfect geometric patterns. It was the largest fleet assembled in 50,000 years, gathered from every corner of their domain. Their target, the human colony world of Nuterra. High Commander Xerxes stood at the center of his command sphere, his crystalline form pulsing with determination. "Let them try their chaos against this," he declared. "We will show them the true meaning of power." But Captain Sarah Chin had been waiting for this moment. As the massive collective fleet approached Nuterra, she smiled. They finally committed themselves. Signal the quantum defense grid to activate. Around Nuterra, space itself began to shift. Thousands of quantum seeds planted by human ships over the previous months awakened simultaneously. The carefully ordered formation of collective ships suddenly found themselves trying to navigate through regions of space where the laws of physics seemed to be rewriting themselves. Multiple quantum state collapses detected, reported Commander Rodriguez aboard the Phoenix. The grid is performing exactly as Dr. Patel predicted. Dr. Eva Patel's greatest creation wasn't a weapon. It was a new way of thinking about space itself. The quantum defense grid treated spacetime like a living system, capable of being programmed and evolved. Each quantum seed was both a sensor and a catalyst, working together to create zones where human ships could move freely while collective vessels struggled against ever-changing physical constants. Collective fleet is attempting to compensate, Rodriguez continued. Their ships are trying to maintain formation, but the quantum fluctuations are increasing exponentially. Chen watched as the perfect geometric patterns of the collective fleet began to break apart. Ships designed to operate in precisely calculated conditions found themselves in spaces where light moved at different speeds, where gravity shifted unpredictably, where quantum probability collapsed in ways their computers couldn't process. But the collective wasn't finished. From their flagship, Xerxes gave the order to deploy their ultimate weapon. Reality anchors, massive devices designed to stabilize spacetime and restore order to chaos. Reality anchors detected, announced Rodriguez. They're trying to force local space back into classical physics. Right on schedule, Chen replied. Signal the AI integration teams. Time to show them our next evolution. Across the human fleet, crews connected with their ships' artificial intelligences in ways the collective had never imagined. Where the collective saw AI as tools to be controlled, humanity had developed true partnerships with their digital counterparts. Each human ship became a hybrid entity, combining human intuition with AI processing power. The Phoenix's AI, which Chen had named Aurora, merged with her consciousness. Together, they could perceive the quantum battlefield in its full complexity, seeing patterns in the chaos that neither human nor AI could comprehend alone. The reality anchors are creating zones of stability, Aurora communicated directly to Chen's mind. But they're predictable. Each point of order they create becomes a new reference for us to work around. Through their hybrid consciousness, Chen understood. The collective's attempt to impose order was actually making the battlefield easier for human ships to navigate. Every stable point they created became a landmark in the quantum chaos, like stars that could be used for navigation. All ships initiate fractal attack pattern, Chen commanded, her thoughts moving at AI speed through the quantum network. Use their reality anchors as pivot points. Let's show them what true adaptation looks like. The human fleet began to move in impossible patterns, each ship piloted by a hybrid consciousness that could process quantum uncertainty in real time. They turned the collective's own efforts against them, using the zones of stability as fulcrums to launch attacks from seemingly impossible angles. Xerxes watched in horror as his perfect fleet began to crumble. Ships that had never known defeat were being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to ignore the fundamental laws of spacetime. The reality anchors, meant to be their salvation, had become reference points for the humans' devastating counterattacks. They're not just adapting, Val Nu realized, their crystalline form dim with despair. They're evolving in real time. Each response we make gives them new data, new patterns to exploit. We're not fighting a war. We're participating in their evolution. On the quantum battlefield around New Terra, humanity's ships dance through increasingly complex patterns of order and chaos. Each reality anchor the collective deployed added new dimensions to the dance, new possibilities for hybrid minds to exploit. The perfect geometric formations of the collective fleet had completely dissolved. Ships designed for order found themselves adrift in a sea of quantum probability, while human vessels moved with impossible grace through the chaos their enemies had helped create. "Send the signal," Chen commanded. "Let's end this battle and show them what else we've learned while they weren't watching." As the message went out, new signatures appeared on the quantum sensors. From the direction of Earth, something was coming. Something that would show the collective that humanity's evolution was far from complete. The signal from Earth arrived in a way the collective's sensors couldn't comprehend, not through their quantum relay network, but through the chaotic quantum fluctuations themselves. As their fleet struggled to maintain position around New Terra, something unprecedented emerged from the quantum foam of spacetime. Multiple signatures detected, Val Nu reported, their crystalline form vibrating with confusion. But they're not ships. At least, not like anything we've ever encountered. Through the quantum haze appeared humanity's next evolution in space warfare. They weren't vessels in the traditional sense, but rather conscious quantum manifestations, regions of spacetime that had been transformed into living computational matrices. Each one was piloted by a hybrid consciousness, human minds merged with artificial intelligence and quantum computing systems. "Say hello to Project Ascendant," Captain Chen transmitted to the collective fleet. "While you were trying to impose order on chaos, we learned to become part of it." The Phoenix underwent its own transformation. The ship's quantum systems, which had seemed primitive to the collective, revealed their true nature. The apparent patches and modifications merged and shifted, the entire vessel becoming a fluid quantum construct under the control of Chen's hybrid consciousness. High Commander Xerxes watched in disbelief as his sensor officers struggled to explain what they were seeing. The human vessels weren't just moving through quantum distortions, they were creating and manipulating them at will. Each ship had become a nexus of quantum probability, able to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Their technology isn't primitive, Val Nu realized, their voice heavy with revelation. What we saw as imperfection was actually quantum superposition disguised as conventional matter. They weren't building ships, they were growing quantum organisms. The truth was even more profound. Under Dr. Patel's guidance, humanity had discovered that consciousness itself could be quantized. The seemingly random modifications to their ships had actually been quantum neural networks, growing and evolving with each battle. Every engagement with the collective had taught them more about manipulating the fabric of reality. Commander Rodriguez, now fully merged with his ship's systems, coordinated the human fleet's movements through pure thought. The quantum manifestations moved in patterns that defied classical physics, existing in multiple locations simultaneously, using uncertainty itself as both weapon and shield. Target their reality anchors, Chen commanded through the quantum network that now linked all human forces. Show them what happens when you try to force quantum systems to behave classically. The human fleet's attack was unlike anything the collective had ever faced. Each quantum manifestation approached a reality anchor from multiple probability states simultaneously. When the anchors attempted to collapse these states into classical spacetime, the resulting quantum backlash created cascading failures throughout the collective fleet. Their entire strategy is based on forcing universe to behave according to their rules. Dr. Patel's voice echoed through the quantum network. We've learned to work with the universe as it actually is, infinitely complex, inherently uncertain, and always evolving. Xerxes watched helplessly as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled. Ships that tried to maintain rigid formations found themselves fighting enemies that could attack from any position in spacetime simultaneously. Reality anchors, designed to impose order, became liability as their attempts to stabilize spacetime created predictable patterns that the humans could exploit. The collective's perfect geometric formations, maintained for thousands of years, finally shattered completely. Ships began breaking ranks, their crews unable to cope with battlefield conditions that defied their fundamental understanding of reality. The mighty fleet that had arrived to crush humanity's chaos was instead being transformed by it. We should have recognized it sooner. Val Nu transmitted on an open channel. Your apparent primitive technology, your seemingly random modifications, they were camouflage. You were hiding quantum complexity in plain sight, knowing we would see only what we expected to see. That's the difference between us, Chen replied, her consciousness spanning both normal and quantum space. You built your civilization on the assumption that the universe can be controlled through perfect order. We built ours on the understanding that the only constant is change. As the battle reached its climax, the quantum manifestations began a new phase of their evolution. The chaos they had introduced into collective space was reaching a critical point, one that would force the galaxy itself to adapt and change. The perfect, crystalline order that had dominated for millennia was about to undergo its own transformation, and humanity, having mastered both classical and quantum existence, was ready to guide that transformation. The question was no longer whether the collective would accept change, but how much of their identity they could preserve as change became inevitable. The quantum storms around New Terra reached their peak, reality itself seeming to hold its breath as two fundamentally different approaches to existence faced their final confrontation. The collective's remaining ships, their perfect crystalline forms now scared by quantum fluctuations, gathered around the eternal wisdom for one last stand. High Commander Xerxes stood in his command sphere, watching as the fabric of space-time twisted and folded around his fleet. The quantum manifestations that had once been human ships danced through probability space, each one a living embodiment of the chaos his civilization had spent millennia trying to suppress. You could still join us. Captain Chen's voice echoed through quantum space, her consciousness now spanning multiple dimensions of reality. This isn't about victory or defeat. It's about evolution. The truth of her words was evident in the space around them. The quantum seeds humanity had planted throughout collective space had grown into something new, a living network of quantum consciousness that was gradually transforming the galaxy itself. The rigid order of the past was giving way to dynamic, evolving patterns of existence. Dr. Patel's voice joined Chen's in the quantum chorus. Your civilization achieved something remarkable. Perfect stability, perfect order. But the universe isn't meant to be static. Change is not just inevitable, it's essential for growth. Through the quantum network, humanity shared their understanding. They showed the collective how their seemingly primitive modifications had actually been experiments in quantum evolution. Each patch, each improvised repair, had been a step toward understanding how consciousness itself could shape reality. Your reality anchors were built to enforce classical physics, Rodriguez explained, his hybrid consciousness reaching out to the collective crews. But we learned to speak the quantum language of the universe itself. We don't fight chaos. We embrace it as a source of infinite possibility. Val Nu, watching from beside Xerxes, suddenly understood. The quantum distortions, they're not weapons. They're seeds of transformation. You're not trying to destroy our civilization. You're trying to help it evolve. The Phoenix, now more quantum phenomenon than physical ship, approached the eternal wisdom. In its wake, space-time rippled with new possibilities, new patterns of existence that bridged the gap between classical and quantum reality. Look at your own ships, Chen suggested. The quantum fluctuations haven't destroyed them. They've started to change them. Your crystalline technology is beginning to adapt, to evolve. You can feel it, can't you? Xerxes could indeed feel it. The quantum storms had affected more than just their ships and systems. The rigid crystalline patterns that defined collective consciousness were starting to shift, to embrace new forms of thought and existence. We offer you a choice, Chen continued. You can continue fighting against change, trying to maintain an order that the universe itself rejects, or you can join us in exploring what comes next. The moment of decision had arrived. Throughout collective space, the quantum seeds were reaching critical mass. The transformation they offered couldn't be stopped, but it could be guided, shaped by the combined wisdom of humanity's innovation and the collective's experience. Xerxes looked at his fleet, at the galaxy around them, and at the quantum manifestations that represented humanity's evolution. For the first time in his long existence, he allowed himself to embrace uncertainty. Perhaps, he transmitted, his crystalline form beginning to resonate with the quantum frequencies around him. It is time for the collective to learn something new. The response rippled through quantum space like a wave of possibility. Human quantum manifestations and collective ships began a new dance, not of combat, but of transformation. The rigid geometry of collective formations dissolved into fluid patterns that matched the quantum rhythms of space-time itself. Throughout the galaxy, the quantum network humanity had created pulsed with new energy. The seeds of change they had planted began to bloom, transforming not just space, but consciousness itself. The perfect, static order of the past gave way to something new, a dynamic balance between chaos and structure, between innovation and stability. Captain Chen, her consciousness now spanning both quantum and classical reality, watched as the transformation spread. Humanity had achieved something greater than victory in battle. They had initiated a new phase in the evolution of galactic civilization. The Phoenix, still shifting between states of quantum possibility, took up position alongside the eternal wisdom. Together, they began the work of guiding their civilizations through the transformation. The age of rigid perfection was over. The age of infinite possibility had begun. In the quantum storms around New Terra, human and collective ships moved in harmony, their patterns spelling out the first words of a new chapter in the story of the galaxy. The war was over, but the real adventure, the exploration of what consciousness and reality could become, was just beginning.